Captain John Grizzle McCarthy had seen plenty of battles, but none of them prepared him for the indignity of inheriting what the world now called the galaxy's ugliest timeshare. He stood at the podium of the small-town municipal office, weathered hands gripping the paperwork with the grimness of a man who had once stared down orbital bombardments and now faced gossiping neighbors. His daughter, Samantha, leaned against the back wall, arms folded, her expression caught somewhere between boredom and the mischief of someone who already knew what the headlines would say tomorrow. The official finished stamping the inheritance forms and gave John a polite but pitying smile. "Congratulations, Captain. The McCarthy family now owns Orbital Station E-17. The room snickered. Someone muttered, "You mean floating dumpster 17. Another added, "Hope you like raccoons with jetpacks." The laughter rippled, cruel in its familiarity. John's military reputation as a decorated but retired soldier carried weight, but weight wasn't armor against mockery. Sam arched an eyebrow. "Well, Dad, you always said you wanted a fixer-upper." John stuffed the papers into a folder. "I was thinking more along the lines of a lake cabin, with plumbing, and fewer chances of explosive decompression." His dry wit got another laugh, though this time at his expense, which burned more. The station had belonged to John's late uncle, Uncle Patrick, the family's black sheep. For years Patrick had raved about owning a secret orbital base left over from the old wars. Nobody believed him. People said he drank too much, watched too many sci-fi reruns, and confused fantasy with reality. When the will was read and the orbital deed passed to John, it had turned a family embarrassment into a public circus. The news ran segments titled Space Trash, America's newest inheritance scandal, with animated graphics of a rusted tin can orbiting Earth like some cosmic hobo shack. Sam pulled her jacket tighter as they left the office, her voice carrying that bright sarcasm John knew all too well. "On the bright side, at least now, we've got a place to store your collection of VHS tapes." "They're not tapes, they're artifacts," John corrected, his gruffness tinged with amusement. "And they'll outlast half the streaming junk you watch." Their shuttle ride to the base was quiet, Earth shrinking below them like a marble smeared with clouds. For John, every mile of ascent brought back the weight of duty, the kind he thought he had shed with retirement. For Sam, it was a thrill. Despite her snark, she had always dreamed of space, of touching things her generation was only beginning to claim. The shuttle's vibrations faded into silence as the base came into view, and even her smirk faltered. Orbital Station E-17 looked like someone had welded together 3 junkyards and set the result adrift. The metal plating was corroded, panels missing, whole sections turned dark and dead. Antennae dangled at odd angles like broken bones. A flickering beacon sputtered weakly, as though embarrassed to still be functioning. "Wow," Sam breathed. "She's hideous. It's like the Millennium Falcon had a baby with a garbage barge." John studied it, eyes narrowing. Beneath the decay, something about the structure whispered of older strength, lines too sharp and purposeful for pure junk. He shook the thought away. A soldier who saw ghosts and shadows was only asking to be disappointed. Docking was less docking and more an aggressive rattle. The airlock door resisted like it hadn't been opened in decades, groaning as Sam forced it with a crowbar. Inside, the corridors were worse. Dim lights stuttered in sickly yellow, rust ate at the walls, and abandoned crates filled the passageways. "This is it." Sam's voice echoed. "This is what everyone's laughing about. Dad, even Motel 6 would be ashamed to host this place." John tried a wall console. It sparked, hissed, and died. "It's a start," he muttered, "because soldiers learn to start with less." Exploration revealed more chaos. Old machinery hummed with pointless energy. Hallways branched into half-collapsed sections, and rooms looked like graveyards of forgotten technology. Dust floated like lazy ghosts in the recycled air. And yet, occasionally, they found strange details that didn't match the junkyard aesthetic. Unmarked panels sealed shut with no visible seams. Control consoles too advanced for the rest of the station's primitive systems. Once, Sam caught a glimpse of alien glyphs etched faintly into a bulkhead, though when she pointed it out, her father dismissed it as old graffiti. In the command center, or what passed for one, chairs sat shredded and consoles were half melted. But the central dais drew Sam's attention, a circular platform with a dormant core, sealed beneath glass that looked unbreakable. It pulsed faintly, as though something alive slumbered inside. She knelt, hands brushing over the surface. "Dad, this isn't standard. This isn't even human tech. Look at the interface points. These aren't ports, I don't know what they are." Organic? Biometallic? John peered down at it, unimpressed. Looks like a busted generator to me. Sam gave him a sharp look. You've spent your life blowing things up. I've spent mine fixing them. This isn't busted, it's waiting. Before he could retort, the platform responded. A low vibration shivered through the floor, and the faint pulse grew brighter, threads of light snaking across the walls as if veins were awakening. John stepped back, hand instinctively going to his hip before remembering he wasn't armed. Sam leaned closer, enthralled. The hum built until a voice, smooth, metallic, yet faintly human, spoke. Commanders of the Galactic Vanguard, at last you return. John froze. Sam's jaw dropped. The voice continued, calm yet resonant, as if it had been rehearsing this moment for eons. Designation, Station E-17. Status, dormant. Awaiting activation protocols. Confirm command authority. Sam looked at her father, wide-eyed, exhilarated. Dad, it knows us. John shook his head, baffled. That's impossible. This station's a pile of junk. Correction, the voice said, as though responding to him directly. This station is the last bastion of humanity's ancient dominion. Commanders, do you wish to resume operational status? The silence in the command center stretched, thick with disbelief. Sam's heart pounded, her mind racing through possibilities. This wasn't just her eccentric gray-tunkle's delusion. This wasn't junk. This was a secret history no one on Earth knew existed. John rubbed his scarred jaw, uncertain, but for the first time since they'd received this inheritance, he wasn't thinking of embarrassment. He was thinking of responsibility, of danger, of a weight he'd thought retired, along with his rank. Sam whispered almost reverently, Dad, I think we just inherited something a lot bigger than a joke. And the core glowed brighter, as if agreeing, casting long shadows across the ruined command center that made the broken base feel suddenly very alive. The walls of the command chamber still smoked from overloaded circuits, the acrid scent of burnt wiring clinging to the recycled air. Sam crouched beside a sparking console, sleeves rolled up, hands blackened with soot as she tried to coax it back to life. She hummed under her breath, some half-remembered 90s cartoon jingle, the sound cutting absurdly against the backdrop of scorched metal and the low, steady thrum of alien technology. John paced behind her, arms folded across his chest, boots echoing with each deliberate step. His eyes scanned every corner of the chamber as though another strike could come at any moment. He wasn't built for waiting, and the station, vast, unpredictable, and suddenly alive, offered too many angles for an enemy to exploit. You know, Sam said, twisting a fiber optic cable into place. For something that's supposedly the last bastion of the mighty Galactic Vanguard, this place is running on the functional equivalent of chewing gum and a prayer. John grunted. Welcome to inheriting history. It never comes polished. Just blood-stained. She glanced over her shoulder, brow raised. Wow. Morbid pep talk. 10 out of 10. He didn't smile, but the faintest twitch at the corner of his mouth betrayed the effort to restrain one. He watched her pull the console apart with more confidence than he expected. She wasn't a soldier. He tried to keep her far from that path, but she had a stubborn resilience he recognized all too well. The AI's voice interrupted, calm but never warm. Structural analysis complete. Station integrity, 63%. Offensive capacity, negligible. Probability of survival against full fleet assault, less than 1%. Sam slapped the console, the holographic screen snapping back online with a flicker. There. Fixed. And shut up, Hal. We're not dead yet. John frowned. Don't antagonize it. For all we know, this thing decides who gets air. Relax, she said, brushing dust from her hands. It's programmed to obey human command authority, remember? We're basically its bosses. Think of it as Alexa with a god complex. Before John could reply, the projection shifted, displaying star maps scattered with red warning sigils. Alien factions lit up across the chart, each pulsing brighter as communications swept through their networks. The enemy scout hadn't just escaped, it had broadcasted a message. And the galaxy was listening. Sam's eyes widened. Oh no, we just went viral. The AI elaborated, as though reading from an obituary. Recorded data indicates multiple empires now aware of humanity's reactivation. Historical records describe humans as the catalyst of collapse. Probability of hostile approach by at least 3 factions, certain. John stiffened. He had no interest in myth, but the phrase hit like a gut punch. catalyst of collapse. He could almost hear the propaganda forming, painting them as ancient monsters awoken from slumber. He muttered under his breath, "Always the villains." Sam glanced at him, catching the edge in his tone. "Dad, we're not villains." He looked back at her, eyes shadowed with experience. "That's not for us to decide. Out there, they've already made their judgment." The chamber fell silent for a beat, the only sound the low hum of machinery and Sam's shallow breath. She tried to fill the void with humor, voice light, but strained. "So basically we've inherited the interstellar equivalent of a haunted house. Everyone's scared of us, we don't even know why, and now the neighbors are lining up with pitchforks." John didn't laugh. He approached the main console, studying the alien war maps with a soldier's cold focus. "If we don't figure out what this place is, and fast, we won't last long enough to ask why." Sam's lips pressed into a thin line. She looked smaller in that moment, as though the enormity of the galaxy pressing down on their shoulders had finally registered. But then she straightened, chin lifting, and her stubborn spark returned. "Then we learn. This base is ours. And if the galaxy thinks it's going to steamroll us, maybe it's time to remind them what humans are really like." Her words echoed in the chamber, reckless and raw, but they carried a heat John couldn't ignore. He studied her, caught between pride and dread. She was too much like him, ready to fight when reason said run. Before he could respond, the console pinged. A new signal blared across the hologram, an alien transmission, unencrypted and bold. A towering, insectoid figure appeared, mandibles clicking as it hissed through the speakers. "Humans," it sneered. "Your return is a stain upon the stars. You once burned half the galaxy with your madness. We will not permit your disease to spread again. Surrender your station, or your blood will christen its ruin." Sam blinked at the threat, then leaned toward the hologram with exaggerated casualness. "Wow. Hi to you too. Great to meet the neighbors." John shot her a warning glance, but she shrugged. "What?" he started it. The alien's eyes narrowed, voice dripping venom. "Mockery will not save you." John stepped forward, his voice steady, every word edged with steel. "Neither will threats." The transmission cut abruptly, the hologram vanishing in a static hiss. Silence returned, heavier than before. Sam exhaled sharply, trying to lighten the moment. "Okay, so diplomacy's off the table. Good to know." John didn't answer. His mind was already working, strategies assembling in the void where panic threatened to seep. The truth was brutal and inescapable. They were alone, outnumbered, and sitting on a powder keg that the galaxy wanted gone. But beneath the weight of inevitability, another truth flickered. Humans had always been underestimated. Sam watched him, her expression softer now, almost searching. "Dad, we're not really going to run, are we?" He met her gaze, his silence the answer. Running had never been an option. The AI interrupted once more, its tone as impassive as ever. Incoming signatures detected. Estimated time to arrival, 3 standard days. Recommend preparation. Sam swallowed, her throat tight. 3 days. She turned toward her father, her voice trembling but resolute. "That's all we get." John rested a hand on the console, his weathered face unreadable, but his voice carried the unshakable weight of a soldier who had seen too much to falter now. "Then we make it count." The station pulsed around them, its ancient systems whispering of wars long forgotten. Father and daughter stood side by side, caught between dread and defiance, as the shadow of the galaxy closed in. The inheritance was no longer a joke. It was a countdown. "Would you like me to shape Section 3 so it shifts the scope outward, alien factions preparing, their propaganda twisting humanity's legacy, while still keeping John and Sam at the core of the story?" The station's corridors pulsed faintly with the hum of dormant systems waking in uneven waves, like an old beast stretching its limbs after centuries of slumber. Sam trailed her fingers across a wall panel as she walked beside her father, the smooth alloy warm to the touch, as if alive. She had never been aboard anything this massive before, let alone something so ancient it predated human recorded history. "It's weird," she murmured, her voice echoing faintly. "Like it remembers us." John glanced sidelong at her, his posture taut and wary. "It doesn't remember. It was designed to obey. There's a difference. Cold, Dad. Even for you. I prefer realistic." Despite his words, he couldn't shake the sense of presence. The station seemed aware, its systems flickering whenever they entered a new chamber, as if tracking them, measuring them. Every instinct told him this place was both weapon and witness, and they were standing in the middle of a history that no one had taught them, but everyone else seemed to fear. The AI's voice rose suddenly from the ceiling. Recommended route adjustment. Proceed to lower command archive for operational context. Sam perked up, brushing a streak of grease from her cheek. See? Even Alexa wants us to get a history lesson. John shot her a look, but he didn't argue. If there were answers buried here, they needed them. The lift shuddered as it descended, metal grinding, as though the very idea of functioning offended it. Sam rocked on her heels, her nerves betrayed by the constant motion of her hands. She masked it with humor, the way she always had. So, place your bets. Do we get a dramatic holographic info dump, or a booby-trapped room full of death lasers? Neither, John said flatly. With our luck, probably both. When the lift opened, the archive stretched before them like a cathedral of memory. Rows of crystalline structures pulsed faintly, each showered flickering with frozen echoes. Sam approached the nearest one, brushing dust from its surface. A figure appeared, hazy tall, humanoid but not quite human. Its voice reverberated, not language so much as impression, searing into their thoughts. The archive spoke of wars, of humanity rising not as conquerors, but as disruptors. Sam felt the images crawl into her mind, fleets scattering before human ingenuity, species forced to unite against a common enemy, not because humans sought domination, but because they refused to obey the galactic order. Humans had been the wild card, the unpredictable flame in a universe built on hierarchy and rules. Sam staggered back, clutching her head. Oh my God! We were the chaos factor. The galaxy's nightmare party crashers. John stood rigid, jaw tight, as the images washed over him. He had seen war, but never like this. Humanity had fought not for territory, but because someone had dared to say, you can't. And they had done it with a ferocity that had terrified the stars into silence. The projection flickered, revealing the final note. Humanity had vanished not because they were defeated, but because they had chosen to withdraw, leaving the galaxy to rebuild under the weight of fear. The station had been the failsafe, a reminder, a warning. Sam's voice trembled. So all those bedtime stories about humans being the underdogs of history? Turns out we were the monster under everyone else's bed. John turned to her, his voice low, rough with something between pride and regret. Monsters don't choose to stop. We did. The moment hung heavy, the archive's glow casting sharp shadows across their faces. Sam wrapped her arms around herself, trying to process. They're going to come for us, Dad. Not because of who we are now, but because of who they think we were. John's silence confirmed it. The central conflict was no longer about inheritance. It was about survival against a legend they hadn't even earned, but now had to wear. Before either of them could say more, the AI cut in, its tone devoid of sympathy. Incoming signals confirm hostile fleets accelerating toward this sector. Estimated arrival, 2 standard days. Sam barked a laugh that cracked under pressure. 2 days? Great. We barely figured out how to turn the lights on, and now we're supposed to fight the galactic equivalent of the Avengers. John studied her, watching the flicker of panic war with defiance in her eyes. He recognized the war within her, the same one he'd fought his whole life. She was terrified, but she refused to be paralyzed by it. He stepped closer, resting a hand briefly on her shoulder. Then we make 2 days count. Sam blinked at him, startled by the rare gesture of reassurance. He wasn't a man of many comforts, but the weight of his words anchored her. For the first time, she believed he wasn't just a soldier prepared for war. He was a father who believed in her. The archive dimmed, its projection fading as if retreating back into slumber. The chamber fell silent except for the faint buzz of power through the crystalline veins. Sam exhaled shakily, forcing herself to break the stillness. Okay, so the galaxy's terrified of us. We've got about 48 hours before they show up with pitchforks and plasma cannons, and our big inheritance is a haunted war bunker with an attitude problem. Did I miss anything? John's expression softened by a fraction, though his tone remained iron. Only one thing. They expect us to play by their rules. Sam tilted her head, curiosity sparking. And we don't. No, he said, the weight of decision settling into his stance. We never did. That's why they fear us. The words landed like a spark, enkindling. Sam felt the knot in her stomach shift into something else, resolve, fragile but growing. For all her jokes and bravado, she had doubted herself, doubted her place in this impossible situation. But her father's conviction was contagious, and the thought that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't firepower, but sheer unpredictability, made her grin despite herself. "Then let's show them," she said quietly. "Let's show them why the galaxy should have left us alone." The lift doors slid open again, the AI's voice a calm counterpoint to the heat of their resolve. "Preparation sequence available. Would you like to initiate?" John didn't hesitate. "Do it." The station thrummed louder, lights flaring as dormant systems roared awake. It was as if the base itself had been waiting for their decision. For the first time since they'd arrived, it wasn't merely a relic of war, it was an ally. Sam glanced up at the glowing walls, her voice a mix of awe and disbelief. "Dad, I think it just picked a side." The ground vibrated beneath their feet as weapons arrays powered on, the faint rumble echoing through the halls like the heartbeat of a giant. Outside, in the cold silence of space, the station's silhouette shifted, no longer a derelict husk, but a fortress stirring from its long slumber. Inside, father and daughter stood at its heart, small against the immensity of it all, but no longer uncertain. They had inherited a legend, and now they had chosen to carry it forward. The countdown continued to tick, the galaxy's fleets closing in. But for the first time, the odds felt less like doom and more like opportunity. Because humans, after all, were never good at playing fair. The wreckage of the alien armada still burned against the stars, fragments drifting like glowing embers scattered across a black ocean. The silence that followed the chaos was deafening, punctuated only by the faint hum of the station's stabilizers and the labored breath of those still standing on its command deck. For John, silence was never comfort, it was the moment before the next blow. He had lived too long to mistake retreat for surrender. Sam sat slouched in the chair beside him, one arm hanging limp, her hair clinging to her damp face. The exhaustion in her eyes was real, but so was the spark. She caught her father staring and managed a crooked smile. "You've got that war isn't over look again. Can't we just enjoy 5 minutes of not being vaporized?" John didn't answer immediately. He stared out the viewport at the fading flashes of slip space as enemy ships fled. His silence told her everything. He didn't believe the fight was finished. He finally spoke, his voice gravel. "They'll be back. Stronger. Smarter. We've just reminded them what we are." Sam groaned but leaned forward, determination blooming in her fatigue. "Then we'd better figure out what else this station can do before they bring their cousins to the party." The AI flickered into presence again, its voice smooth, as if it hadn't just overseen near Armageddon. "Your assessment is correct. This was a probing engagement. Larger fleets are mobilizing. Estimated arrival, 48 standard hours." Sam's head snapped up. 2 days? That's not even enough time to order pizza. John ignored the quip. His mind was already moving, calculating. What do we have left in reserve? The AI answered without hesitation. Core reactor output is at 60%. Shield lattice is fractured but reparable. Drone stock depleted by 85%. Primary weapons functional. Secondary systems, it paused as though uncertain. There are locked protocols requiring biometric confirmation. John frowned. Locked by who? The AI's reply chilled the air. Locked by human command 30,000 years ago. The final safeguard. Sam's eyes widened. Final safeguard. Dad, that sounds like one of those things that either saves everyone or blows us all to hell. Before John could respond, alarms shrieked across the deck. Panels flashed crimson, symbols scrolling faster than Sam's eyes could follow. The AI's calm voice cut through the rising panic. Incoming transmission. Not human. Not local. The viewport shifted, light bending until a holographic projection formed in the air. An alien figure materialized, tall, angular, clad in ceremonial armor that gleamed like liquid obsidian. Its eyes were sharp and cold, the kind that measure value in terms of blood spilled. Its voice carried both menace and disdain. "Humans, you should not exist." Sam muttered under her breath, "Great start. Love the diplomacy." The alien continued, "Your myths of conquest were meant to fade. Your wars erased. Yet you rise again, gnawing at the fabric of peace. Know this. You will not frighten us with phantoms of the past. We are not our ancestors. We are stronger. We are united." John stepped forward, his shoulders squared. "You can dress it up however you want. But fear is already in you. You wouldn't have come with a speech if it wasn't. The alien's expression flickered, just for a breath, before hardening again. We will return. When we do, your station will burn, and humanity's shadow will end. The hologram collapsed into static, then silence. Sam exhaled, shaking her head. Dad, that guy definitely practices his evil monologues in the mirror. But John wasn't smiling. He turned to the AI. Unlock the safeguard. Now. Biometric confirmation required, the AI repeated. John pressed his palm to the console. The panel scanned, then pulsed with light. The deck shuddered, as if the entire station drew in a breath. Metal groaned. Deep within its structure, machinery, long dormant, stirred. Sam grabbed the railing. Dad? Would you just wake up? The AI's voice was different now, heavier, as if layers of silence had been peeled away. Safeguard authorization confirmed. Releasing planetary defense sequence, Project Leviathan. The station transformed. From its underside, colossal panels unfolded, glowing lines running across their surfaces like veins igniting with power. A massive construct emerged, dwarfing the drones, dwarfing even the battleship they had destroyed. It was shaped like a spearhead, plated with obsidian armor that seemed to drink starlight. Sam's jaw dropped. Oh, my God. Dad, we've got a space dragon. Not dragon, the AI corrected. Leviathan-class autonomous warship. Designed to end wars before they begin. John's eyes narrowed. Designed for genocide. The truth hung heavy. Humanity hadn't built weapons to win. They had built weapons to terrify, to erase. Sam looked at the monstrous vessel and felt both awe and dread. So what's the plan? Do we use it? John didn't answer right away. He saw his daughter's reflection in the glass, her eyes searching his, looking for the line between survival and monstrosity. He thought of the alien commander's threat, of the fleets massing just days away, of Earth long gone. Humanity had been wiped from history once already. We use it, he said finally, but we control it, not the other way around. The AI interjected. Leviathan requires dual command input. One elder, one heir. Sam blinked. Wait, I'm the heir? You're telling me 30,000 years ago some lunatic thought, hey, let's make sure the teenager gets a say in apocalypse decisions. John looked at her, not with doubt, but with a quiet recognition. They built it for people like you, to make sure the ones carrying the legacy also carry the choice. Sam swallowed hard. For the first time, her jokes faltered. She nodded. Okay, then we make the choice together. The Leviathan stirred, its vast form aligning with the station. Energy surged, systems syncing. Across the void, alien reconnaissance ships reappeared, scanning the wreckage of their fallen fleet. They froze when they saw what now awaited them. Sam smirked, finding her courage again. Well, Dad, I think we just put up the biggest no trespassing sign in the galaxy. The AI confirmed what they both already knew. Incoming fleets will see this as declaration of war. John straightened, his voice low but resolute. No, they'll see it for what it really is. Sam tilted her head. And what's that? He looked out at the Leviathan, at the monster humanity had left behind, and answered with a grim certainty. A warning. And as the alien scouts vanished back into slip space, the vast silhouette of the Leviathan burned against the stars, a nightmare reborn, a promise etched into the void. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same.